In a quaint little town, where the days were filled with children's laughter and the warmth of family, Lucy lived with her parents, James and Isabel. A bright and innocent girl, Lucy shared a unique bond with her family, especially her father. They often played together in front of their cozy home, filled with cherished memories. On one such day, as Lucy and James played, Lucy's eyes sparkled with a mysterious light. She looked up at her father in a moment of pure vulnerability and said, "Daddy, I can see Grandpa Jackson." Torn between his grief and the need to protect his daughter, James was perplexed. Looking into her innocent eyes, he knelt down and said softly, "I know you miss Grandpa, but he's not here with us anymore, sweetie." Lucy, coughing, looked at him with a seriousness that belied her years. "But I see him, Daddy. He's right there." Feeling a tug at his heart, James decided it was time to take her inside. Lucy's mother, Isabel, a caring and nurturing woman, immediately checked her temperature. "You have a fever, my dear," she said with concern. "We need to see the doctor tomorrow." James, always dependable, excused himself, needing to check something, leaving Isabel to comfort Lucy. As Isabel tucked Lucy into bed, she noticed a small notebook beside her. "What's this, sweetie?" she asked, pointing to the book. Lucy's eyes lit up. "It's my storybook, Mommy. There's a sad man in it." Curious and concerned, Isabel asked, "Who is he?" Lucy shook her head, her voice barely a whisper, "I don't know. I saw him in my dream." Isabel smiled warmly, "If you need any help, just let me know. Remember, Christmas is coming soon." Lucy's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Can I write the countdown on the board?" she asked eagerly. Isabel nodded, watching Lucy write the number of days left until Christmas with great enthusiasm. Meanwhile, James was in his room, staring at a photo of his father, Jackson. Troubled by Lucy's words, he glanced outside but saw nothing unusual. With a loving gaze, he checked on Lucy that night before she slept. She was writing in her book again. "What's the sad man doing now?" he asked gently. Lucy looked up, her eyes wide with innocence. "He looks sad, but I don't know why. I thank God and I will soon be friends with him." James, puzzled and touched by her words, told her to sleep early because she was sick. As he left, he felt an inexplicable presence in the room, a comforting sense that his father was still with them. After James left, Jackson appeared at Lucy's bedside. His presence calmed her young heart. "Can I stay with you, Lucy?" he asked softly. Lucy's laughter was pure joy. "Of course, Grandpa. You're my best friend." "I'm not feeling well," she confided. Jackson, with wise words and a comforting smile, suggested she sleep. Later that night, James shared his concerns with Isabel. "Lucy said she saw my dad," he began, his voice filled with wonder and worry. Isabel, equally confused, mentioned the sad man in Lucy's book. "Do you think there's something more to it?" she asked. James, trying to reassure her, said, "I think it's just her way of coping. Everything will be fine." In a grim and lonely prison in a different part of town, a doctor informed Pastor Johnson about a prisoner named Edgar. Edgar had a severe kidney condition and needed immediate medical attention. Overhearing this, Edgar, a man resigned to his fate, interrupted, expressing his indifference to the news. Pastor Johnson, however, saw a glimmer of hope. "God gives second chances," he told Edgar. "I'll talk to the warden on your behalf." Despite his initial resistance, Edgar was transferred to a hospital. The journey was arduous, and he felt hope and despair. The warden, a stern but fair man, signed off on the treatment, believing everyone deserved a second chance. Pastor Johnson handed Edgar a Bible, urging him to read it. As they left, Luther, a guard with a mean streak, threatened Edgar, warning he wouldn't leave the hospital alive. The next day, Isabel took Lucy to the doctor. After a thorough examination, the doctor diagnosed Lucy with pneumonia. "These pills should help," he said, "but if her symptoms persist, come back immediately." James, worried about Lucy's visions, called his mother, April. She listened patiently, then said, "Maybe it's because they were so close. Our house was their home, too, remember? Lucy is special. Don't worry too much. Meanwhile, Edgar's arrival at the hospital began a challenging journey. Dr. Stanswick, in charge of his treatment, explained the difficulties ahead. As a prisoner, your name is lower on the transplant list, he said. The warden acknowledged this but insisted on following proper procedures. Guards were instructed to keep Edgar cuffed to his bed, allowing him to leave only for routine checks. Despite Luther's harsh demeanor, the warden forbade excessive force. That night, back at home, James tried to give Lucy her medication, but she refused. Grandpa says you understand how he felt when he didn't want to take his medicine, she giggled. James, confused but amused, dismissed it as childish imagination. Isabel eventually convinced Lucy to take her meds and eat, and Jackson's gentle encouragement made it easier for her. As the days passed, Lucy continued to work on her book, but her condition did not improve. With Christmas approaching, James and Isabel grew more concerned. They decided to take her back to the hospital for further tests. Dr. Stanswick performed various tests and tried to reassure them, but the worry in their eyes was unmistakable. Isabel stayed by Lucy's side, apologizing for how she felt and promising never to leave her alone. At the hospital, Lucy's health continued to deteriorate. Dr. Stanswick informed her parents that her pneumonia was progressing and she needed to be admitted. April, James' mother, arrived to support them. Isabel shared her fears with her. Lucy, meanwhile, noticed a man being wheeled in for tests. "Mommy, that's the sad man from my dreams," she said, showing them a drawing she had made. James was skeptical, but Isabel and April were struck by the resemblance. James, driven by curiosity, asked the nurse about the man Lucy had seen. "He's a prisoner here for a kidney transplant," the nurse explained. The nurse suggested they could move Lucy to another room if he were concerned. James declined, saying he was just curious about the man. With her characteristic compassion, Lucy talked to her other grandfather, Mike, on the phone. Despite recent surgery preventing him from visiting, he expressed his love and concern for her. As the days went by, Lucy's condition worsened. Dr. Stanswick warned that she might go into shock, which could be fatal. Isabel was terrified, but the doctor assured her it was a worst-case scenario. Meanwhile, Luther, always harsh, mocked Edgar by tearing up a family photo he had been holding. Edgar felt a deep sense of helplessness and sadness. Lucy, driven by a deep sense of compassion and guided by Jackson, decided to sneak out to meet Edgar. As she walked out into the hallway, she met Bart, the hospital cleaner, and promised to draw him a picture. Jackson, her guardian angel, helped distract Luther by triggering an alarm. Lucy quickly made her way to Edgar's room and introduced herself. She noticed Edgar was holding a torn picture. Lucy asked who the people in the picture were and why is it torn in half. Edgar handed her the two pieces of the photograph and told Lucy it was his wife and daughter, who he hadn't seen for quite some time. Edgar stated in a solemn tone that he doesn't believe they want to see him anymore. Lucy offered to speak to God about his family and promised to return the next day to read the Bible together. Unaware of her selfless act, Luther checked on Edgar, thinking he was talking to himself, allowing Lucy to sneak back unnoticed. The next day, Lucy struggled to breathe and was given an oxygen mask. Dr. Stanswick informed her parents that her condition was worsening but promised to try a new medication. As James wheeled Lucy around the hospital, they met Edgar in the hallway, waiting for a test. She asked Edgar about his condition, and he explained he needed a kidney. Lucy asked her dad, "Do I have a kidney?" James said, "Yes, dear, you have 2 kidneys." "Oh good, I want to give one of my kidneys to Edgar so he can live and see his family again so that he won't be sad anymore." Shocking James, he gently explained that it wasn't possible. You can't just give your kidneys away because you need them. That night, Jackson helped Lucy sneak out again to visit Edgar. She gave Bart, the cleaner, the promised picture and met Edgar in his room, who was already reading the Bible. Edgar spoke about his wife and daughter, doubting they still cared for him. Lucy encouraged him to believe in their love and forgiveness. "I am writing a book for you," Lucy said. On her way back to her room, Lucy met an old lady named Betty, who reassured her of God's love and comforted her with her innocent wisdom. As Christmas approached, Lucy continued sneaking out to see Edgar. He looked forward to their visits, and their unexpected bond grew into a special friendship that Edgar had never had before. On Christmas Eve, Edgar's wife, Adrienne, and daughter, Tiana, visited him. They were brought in by Pastor Johnson, who was concerned that Edgar was gravely ill and did not have much time left. Edgar was overjoyed to see them. Meanwhile, Lucy asked Dr. Stanswick to donate one of her kidneys to Edgar as a Christmas present on Christmas Day. This statement shocked everyone in the room. James and Isabel considered the request, touched by their daughter's selflessness and knowing they might soon need to let her go. That night, Lucy finished her book and asked her father to take her to see Edgar. James picked up his daughter in his arms and carried her out of her hospital room. On their way, she greeted other young patients with a smile as she passed by their rooms. Lucy told her father that Grandpa would set the alarm off so they could visit Edgar unnoticed. No sooner had she said these words than the alarm sounded. James was stunned. Did his father do this? Lucy and James entered the room. Edgar thanked Lucy for changing his life, and she proudly gifted him her book. As Luther was distracted by the alarm at the end of the hall, Lucy secretly took the key sitting on the chair and gave it to Edgar, allowing him to unlock his cuffs later. Edgar begins to read the book Lucy gave him and is astonished at the detail about his life before they ever meet. Lucy's health deteriorated rapidly, and April sought the doctor. Edgar, moved by Lucy's book, unlocked his cuffs and stepped to the door, looking out to see no guard. He made his way to Lucy's room to thank her for her gift. He arrived just as nurses were struggling to revive her, but it was too late. Lucy was pronounced dead, leaving her parents devastated and Edgar heartbroken. In his grief, James saw Lucy's ghost and Jackson walking down the hall together. Pleading for her not to go, he watched as she waved goodbye. Later that day, Lucy's kidney was donated to Edgar, who recovered and was reunited with his family. The memory of Lucy's selflessness and love remained with everyone who knew her. Years passed, and James and Isabel welcomed a baby boy named Alex into their family. While playing with Alex one day, James saw Jackson and Lucy at the gate. When Alex noticed his father's gaze, he asked what he was looking at. "It's your grandfather and sister," James said softly. Jackson and Lucy, holding hands, walked away, leaving behind a legacy of love, faith, and the enduring bond of family.
Be sure to subscribe to Edge of Your Seat Stories and click the notification bell for more captivating mysteries filled with intrigue, romance, and dynamic relationships. Please leave a comment below. Tell us of your stories. Until next time, dream big.